March, can you believe it? We're in it. We jumped into it. 2026. Let's give you the weather forecast real quick. Sunshine today. Looks pretty nice. 78 for the daytime high. Tuesday, sunny and a high of 79. So looking good there. And Wednesday, still looking good. Sunny skies and a high of 81. You are listening to Dixon and Vining at Talk 99.5, talk995.com. Glad that you're with us this morning. We appreciate it very much. And hope you had a fabulous weekend, aside from all that we were reporting over the weekend on Saturday with what is going on in the Middle East, U.S. and Israel, finally taking out some of the top regime in Iran, which is very, very good. Right now, Pete Hegseth is at the Pentagon, right now breaking news, giving us an update on some of those strikes. Let's join him in progress.
Iran's stubborn and self-evident nuclear pursuits, their targeting of global shipping lanes, and their swelling arsenal of ballistic missiles and killer drones are no longer tolerable risks. Iran was building powerful missiles and drones to create a conventional shield for their nuclear blackmail ambitions. Let me say that again. A conventional shield for their nuclear blackmail ambitions. Our bases, our people, our allies, all in their crosshairs. Iran had a conventional gun to our head as they tried to lie their way to a nuclear bomb. It almost worked under Obama and his terrible deal, but not under this president. Turns out the regime who chanted death to America and death to Israel was gifted death from America and death from Israel. This is not a so-called regime change war, but the regime sure did change, and the world is better off for it. Today, in their desperation, the enemy is unmasked as Iranian missiles and drones rain down indiscriminately on the hotels, airports, apartments, and other civilian targets of their neighbors. Cowardly terrorist tactics from a regime that for decades has trafficked in cowardly terrorist tactics, lies, death, and destruction to this day. The Iranian leadership has built nothing except proxies and missiles and drones and deeply buried nuclear factories and facilities. Peaceful nuclear ambitions do not need to be buried underneath mountains. Last June, Operation Midnight Hammer obliterated their nuclear program to rubble. Afterward, we told them plainly, that's it, now make a deal. They arrogantly refused. We said, rebuild it, and we'll stop you again, this time far worse. Well, President Trump, Secretary Rubio, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, they bent over backwards for real diplomacy, offering pathway after pathway to peace. I watched it. I was there. They tried over and over and over again earnest attempts at peace. The former regime had every chance to make a peaceful and sensible deal. But Tehran was not negotiating. They were stalling, buying time to reload their missile stockpiles and restart their nuclear ambitions. Their goal, hold us hostage, threatening to strike our forces. Well, President Trump doesn't play those games. And as Secretary Rubio said after the Maduro raid, if you don't know, now you know. President Trump puts America and Americans first. He doesn't hesitate, and neither do our troops. The mission of Operation Epic Fury is laser-focused. Destroy Iranian offensive missiles, destroy Iranian missile production, destroy their navy and other security infrastructure, and they will never have nuclear weapons. We're hitting them surgically, overwhelmingly, and unapologetically. With every passing day, our capabilities get stronger and Iran's get weaker. We set the terms of this war from start to finish. Our ambitions are not utopian. They are realistic, scoped to our interests and the defense of our people and our allies. Speaking of people, we hope the Iranian people take advantage of this incredible opportunity. President Trump has been clear, now is your time. To Iranian security forces, choose wisely. President Trump has also been clear about your fate in either direction. To the media outlets and political left screaming endless wars, stop. This is not Iraq. This is not endless. I was there for both. Our generation knows better, and so does this president. He called the last 20 years of nation-building wars dumb, and he's right. This is the opposite. This operation is a clear, devastating, decisive mission. Destroy the missile threat, destroy the Navy, no nukes. Israel has clear missions as well, for which we are grateful. Capable partners, as we've said since the beginning, capable partners are good partners. Unlike so many of our traditional allies who wring their hands and clutch their pearls, hemming and hawing about the use of force. America, regardless of what so-called international institutions say, is unleashing the most lethal and precise air power campaign in history. B-2s, fighters, drones, missiles, and of course, classified effects. All on our terms, with maximum authorities. No stupid rules of engagement, no nation-building quagmire, no democracy-building exercise, no politically correct wars. We fight to win, and we don't waste time or lives. As the president warned, an effort of this scope will include casualties. War is hell, and always will be. A grateful nation honors the 4 Americans we have lost thus far and those injured. The absolute best of America. May we prosecute the remainder of this operation in a manner that honors them. No apologies, no hesitation, epic fury for them and the thousands of Americans before them, taken too soon by Iranian radicals. Before I turn it over to General Kane for the operational update, let me speak straight to you, the Joint Force, our warriors on the front lines. This is your moment. This is the generational turning point America has waited for since 1979, and since the rudderless wars of hubris, my generation, our generation, endured. Don't listen to the noise. Just stay focused. Our commander-in-chief is steady at the wheel. We face a determined enemy, but you are better. But we must prove it every single day. History doesn't care if we're tired, if we're scared, or if the fight feels big. It demands warriors who rise anyway. Peace through strength, the warrior ethos, lethality, unity of purpose, those are not slogans. They're the beating heart of what it means to wear the uniform, that uniform. You think clearly under fire, you act decisively in chaos, you uphold the Constitution, and you uphold our country without hesitation. We are not defenders anymore. We are warriors, trained to kill the enemy and break their will. History is watching. Be the force you swore an oath to be: focused, disciplined, lethal, and unbreakable. We will finish this on America First conditions of President Trump's choosing. Nobody else's, as it should be. And know this above all, President Trump and I have your back, always. Through fire, through criticism, through fake news, through everything. We unleash you because you are the best, most powerful, most lethal fighting force the world has ever seen. May Almighty God watch over you and his providential arms of protection extend over you. Godspeed, warriors, and keep going. General Kane, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and good morning, everyone. The purpose of my portion of the briefing today is to update you and the American people on the actions taken thus far. The briefing will discuss the preparation, the planning, setting the force, the early operations, and how we're assessing the progress thus far. So let's get started. On Saturday, 28 February at 01:15 Eastern Standard Time, 9:45 a.m. local Tehran time, on the orders of the President of the United States, U.S. Central Command, under the command of United States Navy Admiral Brad Cooper, commenced Operation Epic Fury. As I said, I'm going to walk you through the initial phases of the operation. But first, I want to express my deep condolences and the condolences of the Joint Force to the Department of War personnel killed and wounded in actions thus far. As the Secretary said, they're heroes and represent the best of our nation has to offer. They're true examples of what selfless service means. Our deepest and heartfelt condolences are with their families, their friends, and their units. We grieve with you, and we will never forget you. Additionally, I stand here before you today grateful for each service member, planner, logistician, operator across our joint force, for our Department of War civilians, our intelligence community teammates, our interagency teammates who continue to stand in harm's way alongside us. I am proud of all of you as you take the fight to the enemy, and we are the best in the world at integrating, period. I want to extend my personal gratitude to the dedicated commanders and senior enlisted leaders and the enlisted members of the Joint Force who are fighting this fight across the CENTCOM AOR. In addition to Admiral Cooper and Fleet Master Chief Compton, I want to highlight a few today. U.S. Army Central Command Commander Lieutenant General Pat Frank, who, along with his team, are fighting the counter-missile and counter-drone fight. United States Navy Central Command Commander Vice Admiral Kurt Renshaw and his team, who are engaged with the Iranian Navy and projecting American naval combat power from the seas. And United States Air Force Central Command Commander Lieutenant General Derek France and his leadership team, who are crushing Iranian targets from the air. I want to highlight the support to the CENTCOM fight from other combatant commands who are directly involved with this effort, to include U.S. Spacecom, U.S. Cybercom, and U.S. UCOM. I also want to specifically call out United States Transportation Command and U.S. STRATCOM for their contributions to this fight. We cannot project American combat power at the time and place of our choosing without both. And finally, I want to express how deeply thankful I am for the continued service and sacrifice of the entire Joint Force and their families. Their unwavering commitment and dedication are the cornerstones of this effort. So let me start with a few details. First, to be clear, as the Secretary said, this is not a single overnight operation. The military objectives that CENTCOM and the Joint Force have been tasked with will take some time to achieve, and in some cases will be difficult and gritty work. We expect to take additional losses, and as always, we will work to minimize U.S. losses. But as the Secretary said, this is major combat operations. So let me talk about the preparation and the planning. On February 28th, the full strength of America's armed forces came together in a unified purpose against a capable and determined adversary. The United States Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Space Force, Coast Guard, and our reserve components integrated across our combatant commands and began coordinated operations with the Israeli armed forces of an unprecedented scale. As the Secretary laid out, our military objectives are clear. Our mission is to protect and defend ourselves and, together with our regional partners, prevent Iran from the ability to project power outside of its borders and be ready for follow-on actions as appropriate. Across every domain, land, air, sea, cyber, the U.S. Joint Force delivered synchronized and layered effects designed to disrupt, degrade, deny, and destroy Iran's ability to conduct and sustain combat operations. On the U.S. side, this marked the culmination of months and in some cases years of deliberate planning and refinement against this particular target set. From precision strikes against key military infrastructure to persistent intelligence and targeting integration to the close coordination of the components across vast distances, this operation again demonstrated America's reach, readiness, and professionalism, and that of our joint united force. It was historic not only in the operational scope, but in the level of joint integration displayed across every element of the joint force. And as I said earlier, this work is just beginning and will continue. So now to talk a little bit about setting the force and setting the theater. On the order of the Secretary of War over the last 30 days to reinforce deterrence and provide the President with credible options should action be required, the Joint Force began to systematically reposition assets and personnel across the region. These movements ensured that U.S. forces remained postured, protected, and ready to respond decisively for any emerging threat. This deployment included thousands of service members from all branches, hundreds of advanced fourth and fifth generation fighters, dozens of refueling tankers, the Lincoln and Ford Carrier Strike Group and their embarked air wings, sustained flow of munitions, fuel, supplies, all supported with command and control, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance network. And the flow of forces continues today. In fact, Admiral Cooper will receive additional forces even today. This rapid buildup of forces demonstrated the joint forces' ability to adapt and project power at the time and place of our nation's choosing. I want to highlight a couple specific cases for you. The Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group, which many of you know was down in the Western Hemisphere, redeployed across the Atlantic to set the theater. The ship, her crew, their families, and the entire strike group took a deep breath and, as they always do, began planning to conduct combat operations. The integrated Reserve and National Guard forces have continued to demonstrate the value of America's reserve forces, including the Wisconsin Army National Guard operating in Kuwait and Iraq, and Air National Guard units from a variety of states to include Vermont and Virginia. In the case of the Vermont Air National Guard and the 158th Fighter Wing, they were mobilized for Operation Absolute Resolve and then were tasked to take their F-35As across the Atlantic instead of going home to be prepared to support this operation. The same is with our Air National Guard and Air Force Reserve Command tanker and mobility forces, who stepped right out of their civilian jobs to deploy and to protect the region. Lastly, I want to highlight the unsung heroes of warfare, our American logisticians and sustainment force, those who quietly work every day behind the scenes to project and sustain America's combat power. Our leaders from World War II were right when they said professionals do logistics. As regional tensions rose, the Joint Force elevated our force protection measures on the order of the Secretary and repositioned discreetly civilians and non-essential personnel designed to ensure the safety and security of our joint force. By the time operations began, only essential forces remained on our bases and in theater, all ready, capable to respond. So now let me move to H hour. At 3:38 p.m. on Friday, February 27th, the United States Central Command, through the Secretary of War, received the final go order from President Trump. The President directed, and I quote, "Operation Epic Fury is approved. No aborts. Good luck," close quote. In the region, every element of the Joint Force made their final preparations. Air defense batteries readied themselves, checking their systems to respond to Iranian attacks. Pilots and crews rehearsed their strike packages for the final time. Air crews began loading their final weapons, and two carrier strike groups began to move towards their launching points. Across the globe, our operations centers came alive in Tampa, Florida, here at the Pentagon, and of course forward in the Central Command AOR. As always, operational security was paramount as we sought to maintain and sustain the element of surprise. This operation was highly classified so that at H hour, the enemy would see one thing: speed, surprise, and violence of action. The first movers were U.S. Cybercom and U.S. Spacecom, layering non-kinetic effects, disrupting and degrading and blinding Iran's ability to see, communicate, and respond. At H hour, the beginning of major combat operations, 01:15 local Eastern Daylight Time, 9:45 local AM Tehran time, as dawn crept up across the Central Command AOR, the skies surged to life. More than 100 aircraft launched from land, sea, fighters, tankers, airborne early warning, electronic attack, bombers from the States, and unmanned platforms, forming a single synchronized wave. This was a daylight strike based on a trigger event conducted by the Israeli Defense Forces, enabled by the U.S. intelligence community. The first shooters at sea were Tomahawks unleashed by the United States Navy, closed in on Iranian naval forces, and began to conduct strikes across the southern flank in Iran. On the ground, forces fired precision standoff weapons, measured, deliberate, precise, and lethal. This was a massive, overwhelming attack across all domains of warfare, striking more than 1,000 targets in the first 24 hours. We are now roughly 57 hours into the operation. In the initial phase, CENTCOM's focus was systematic targeting of Iranians' command and control infrastructure, naval forces, ballistic missile sites, and intelligence infrastructure designed to daze and confuse them. Coordinated space and cyber operations effectively disrupted communications and sensor networks across the area of responsibility, leaving the adversary without the ability to see, coordinate, or respond effectively. The combined impact of these strikes, swift, precise, and overwhelming, has resulted in the establishment of local air superiority. This air superiority will not only enhance the protection of our forces, but also allow them to continue the work over Iran. Over the course of the last 2 days, the Joint Force has launched hundreds of missions from land and sea and delivered tens of thousands of pieces of ordnance. The effort continues to scale. This included American B-2 bombers, which again, similar to Midnight Hammer, flew a 37-hour round-trip sortie from the continental United States, dropping precision, penetrating munitions on Iranian underground facilities across the southern flank and slightly deeper. Additionally, Israel has separately executed hundreds of sorties against hundreds of targets. Beyond Air Force and Navy aircraft strike packages, coordinated salvos of precision standoff weapons from across the region have neutralized hundreds of pre-planned targets. As I mentioned earlier, in support of these kinetic operations, U.S. Cybercom and Spacecom have continuously layered effects to disrupt, disorient, and confuse the enemy. I will note that this operation had several combat firsts, which I'll allow at some point in the future Admiral Cooper to talk about since he owns the AOR. While we've prosecuted a relentless offensive campaign, our defense has been equally important. Across the theater, operations have remained steady and disciplined. Once again, our integrated air and missile defense network is performing exactly as it's intended. U.S. Patriot and THAAD batteries, along with ballistic missile defense-capable Navy destroyers, continue to coordinate and execute intercepts with precision and consistency. I wish that every American could hear the voice communications like I have as these joint operations centers remain calm, focused, and cool while executing under fire over and over again. Collectively, these systems have intercepted hundreds of ballistic missiles targeting U.S. forces, our partners, and regional stability. The threat from one-way attack UAVs has remained persistent. Our systems have proven effective in countering these platforms, engaging targets rapidly. Each intercept represents hundreds of hours of training, readiness, and technology all coming together to work as designed. We will remain vigilant in the counter-UAV fight. And the defense of the region is not ours alone. As the threat grew, our partners surged in beside us. Air defense batteries in Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia joined the fight, proof positive that years of training, trust, and hard-earned integration pay off. I am aware of the loss of 3 U.S. Air Force F-15Es overnight in the region. I am grateful for the safety of the crews, and we know that this was not from hostile enemy fire. As this matter's under investigation, I'll not comment further on this. Let me close. Operations will remain active across the theater and across the globe. The U.S. forces are postured not only to maintain pressure, but to respond and adapt as required. Operation Epic Fury stands as a reminder of what the United States military uniquely delivers: the ability to project power on a global scale with speed, surprise, precision, and overwhelming force when and where our nation requires it. What we've demonstrated over the past several days reflects years of investment in readiness, joint integration, and professionalism of the Joint Force. As major combat operations continue across CENTCOM, we remain engaged globally. America's Joint Force retains the credibility, capacity, and flexibility to respond to any contingency anywhere in the world at any time. To those who would test our resolve or threaten the United States, our allies, or our interests, understand clearly we can reach you, we can sustain the fight, and we can scale the fight, and we will prevail. To the American people, your Joint Force remains steady, frosty, calm, and focused. Your service members are trained, disciplined, and determined. We understand the risks of this mission and the weight of the responsibility that we carry. We also recognize that our families also shoulder the burden at home. You are a part of this too. I am proud today, as I am every day, to stand as a member of America's Joint Force. There is no mission too complex, no distance too great, and no adversary too determined for the men and women who wear our nation's uniform. We mourn our fallen, we honor their families, and we continue our mission with focus, unity, and strength. And now I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Right here. Go ahead.
All right, there we are. That is General Dan Raisin Kane. What is about to follow is a whole bunch of questions that he's not going to be able to answer for classified purposes. That's the way these always go.
And you're going to hear a lot of that probably.
Absolutely.
I can't address that at this time.
No.
So, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth started this breaking news that you just heard, and then General Dan Raisin Kane, Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman. Wow, that's impressive. To hear how this all kind of broke out, when it started, the timeline of it, and then, of course, Saturday is when, Donald Trump said go.
Yep.
And this is what they did. It's impressive.
The amount of disruption that is needed nowadays, it used to be you just show up and you attack, and that was that. But now, suddenly you have to disrupt all of their electronic devices and confuse them, as you said, blind them and make them deaf and make them not able to see or understand what was happening while it was happening. And I'm sure that makes a difference. Iran has its own capabilities, using some of that against our ships in the Gulf, or the Straits of Hormuz, rather. But here's the thing. We are also taking out their ships one after another. So this idea that they're going to blockade that strait and keep 20% of the world's oil from getting where it's going to go, that's not going to last long,
no,
in my opinion.
Well, and again, this is going to take as long as it needs to take. But I think Donald Trump has kind of put out there that sometime within the next 4 weeks, hopefully have this wrapped up. But you look at all of the other countries now that have said, you know what, we want to assist, we want to be a part.
Yep.
Iran right now does not have too many friends, and hopefully this will end sooner. And again, four U.S. service members that have lost their lives in this. That's the tragedy of war, but it's part of it, and the service members and their families know that. And again, we're grateful for what they did.
Everybody loves a winner. That's why they all want to be on our side right now.
Yep.
We'll come back to this in mere moments. And, of course, this is the number one topic of the day. This is not going to stray too far away from what's happening in Iran for the foreseeable future. So stick around if you have something to say on the subject. Feel free to drop us a line, 545-9950. You can go ahead and get that to us through text or call if you're so inclined. It's Dixon and Vining on Talk 99.5 and Talk995.com.
740 at Dixon and Vining at Talk 99.5, talk995.com. We appreciate you being with us this morning. And, of course, some of the breaking news this morning, hearing Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane, Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman, updating us on the timeline and how things unfolded over this weekend. We'll keep you up to date with that and bring you as we get more information this morning about it. Hey, my good friend Daniel over at Noble Contractors, if you're ever in need of somebody to handle gutters at your home, and sometimes you don't. I mean, most homes have gutters. And by the way, if you don't have any, you really should get some. You want to make sure that the water that hits the roof on those rainy days doesn't end up somewhere around the foundation of your home. It needs to move away from the foundation of your home, and that's why you get gutters on your home. The other nice thing is now you have the gutter covers to keep the leaves and pine straw and anything else, any kind of debris, getting in those gutters. And it's important. A lot of people are interested in that. Well, Noble Contractors has that too. Daniel can also do the job for a lot less than some of these big national companies. He's here locally. He's in the Birmingham area. So reach out to Daniel today at 205-422-3034. Online, you can go to noblecontractorsala.com. Ask him for a free estimate. He'll be happy to do that. And just let him know that you're a Talk 99.5 listener and get a 10% discount on your new gutters and gutter covers. Noble Contractors. Give him a call today, 205-422-3034.
All right, let's break down a little bit what was said by Pete Hegseth, especially Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. We'll have three things coming up in 20 minutes anyway, so we can give you that. But here's the thing. I think he wanted very badly to impress upon the American people that this is not a regime change war. In fact, he used those exact words. This is not a regime change war. In other words, we're not going to take responsibility for changing out the leadership in Iran. Now, we took responsibility for killing the leadership that was there, but the plan was the Iranian people are going to have to take control of this once we weaken that ability to make war and infrastructure to the point where they are no longer able to rise up. That is to say, the military is no longer able to rise up. Then the Iranian people are supposed to figure out a way to take over and
change things.
And change things, exactly.
Yep. This is their opportunity.
Repeatedly, Pete Hegseth said, look, this is an America First plan. We're doing this to defend ourselves from the Iranian regime that is going to continue. They were going to continue to seek a nuclear weapon no matter what. They were stalling. They were stalling tactics. They were trying to build up a larger missile bank, get as many of these ballistic missiles, conventional ballistic missiles, as they possibly could, and then use them as a shield for their nuclear program, which they were going to continue. And he brought up something that I think a lot of people have said in the past, which is if you have a peaceful nuclear program, you don't hide it in a mountain.
Yeah.
There's something funny about that.
Yeah, that stockpiling of the uranium there's no question that they had that, and they were stalling. That's exactly what Pete said.
Yeah.
They were stalling. Donald Trump said, look, we've already done this one time to you with Operation Midnight Hammer. Do you want some more of this? Because, when you saw what the U.S. was able to do with that, you don't play around. You go, okay, look, let's figure something out. And you figure it out right then. Instead, they were just dragging it on. And Donald Trump knew it. He was like, we're not going to get these guys to the table, and they're not going to deal with us.
I think it's kind of sad that we have become so used to, over the course of 47 years, the Death to America chant. Death to America, death to Israel. That, it may as well be printed on their money. It literally is their country's
motto.
slogan, their motto. Exactly.
Yep.
If you ever watched the old Hogan's Heroes, right? You had the guys, the Nazis, who would give the full-throated Heil salute with the arm in the air, that angle. Or you would have the guys who would just kind of randomly throw their hand up, kind of, oh, Heil, hey, Heil, is that coffee or are those donuts, Heil? That's a Seinfeld bit. But anyway, that's the way it's become. It's kind of like these guys were just greeting, oh, death to America, death to America. And it just became so normal and natural. And we never took it that seriously because, these guys can't really do anything. They don't really have the power. They're not, they're on the other side of the globe. What really are they going to do?
They get nuclear capability. That's another ball game.
They could do all kinds of things. And here's the thing. When they said death to America and death to Israel, they really meant it. They really wanted us dead. They really thought, well, Israel first, because they're right nearby. And I virtually guarantee the day they got a nuclear weapon, they would have dropped it on Tel Aviv. It would have been that fast because they're like, well, we're not just going to be all talk and no action here. We're going to drop this bomb on Tel Aviv, and we're going to kill as many Jews as we possibly can, and then we're going to wipe the rest of them out with conventional ballistic missiles if that's what it takes. They were serious about that, and they had to be stopped, and we're the ones to do it, and we are really disrupting their ability to make war or do damage in that section of the world or any section of the world, and that is being done as an America First role. Now, if the Iranian people happen to be able to take control of their country and get rid of the horrible leadership that's been there and the terrible theocratic dictatorship that's been there, all the better. But that's not what we're doing it for.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting because there are, of course, a lot of Democrats out there. Rachel Maddow, a perfect example. He doesn't have a plan. This president doesn't have a plan. His plan is to destroy Iran's ability to make war. That's his whole plan. That's all it is. And Pete Hegseth just made that very clear.
Yeah, absolutely, he did. Well, it was good to hear. I wanted to hear the timeline, like exactly when this started, and he was able to lay that out, even the months leading up to it, because they were preparing. They knew that the Iranian regime, the Ayatollah wasn't going to come to the table. They weren't going to be able to come up, so they already had this in place, and they were ready to roll. And it was interesting that Israel was a part of this too, because they were getting it from not only the U.S. military but from the Israeli military as well. And now you've got other countries that are like Saudi Arabia. They were like, well, they tried to bomb the U.S. American base there too. They're like, well, we're in as well, and everybody's glomming on. They're like, we want to be a part of this.
You basically offended everybody in the region. Not that they liked you; they didn't. And it's funny to me because I think Iran honestly believed that they would have their neighbors come to their defense. But the reality is nobody in that region likes Iran. They're bullies. They're mean. They're ugly. They regularly try to press their advantage. And, they're not even that rich because of all the sanctions that have been piled upon them. Saudi Arabia is a significantly better country. So, it is interesting that suddenly we've got Qatar on our side. We've got Bahrain on our side. The UAE is on our side. Yes, Saudi Arabia as well. Jordan is in. I wouldn't be surprised if we get Syria before too long here,
It's a possibility.
And we probably will. It is Dixon and Vining. The Alabama Men's Clinic is really one of the reasons I was able to hike for the past 2 days, I got to be honest. There was a time when I would wake up on a Saturday morning and I would just be like, I just want to stay in bed. I don't feel like moving. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to do anything. That was called low T. And once I got that taken care of, wow, what a game changer. Next thing you know, you're popping out of bed on the weekend on a beautiful day and you're going, I'm going to put on my hiking boots. That's going to be step one. And out the door, we're going to go. Fantastic. If you're struggling with low T, if you find yourself losing a step and you're just a little languid, the Alabama Men's Clinic can help. They have a variety of different options for you. It is urology-backed science. It is operated and powered by Men's Pro. You need to get in touch with the Alabama Men's Clinic at 598-7000 and make an appointment and find out what a game changer it is to have enough testosterone in your body. That is alabamamensclinic.com on the web or 598-7000 on the telephone. Feel free to call them today, make an appointment, and your life could begin changing as early as later this week. You can also make an appointment online, alabamamensclinic.com. 7:53, Talk 99.5, talk995.com. Dixon and Vining with you. We just got a very lengthy speech from Secretary Pete Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, Dan Raisin-Kane, the General.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're a little discombobulated this hour, but we'll rebobulate
Yeah,
by 8
I
o'clock.
heard you say that over the weekend.
Yeah.
I was like, rebobulate.
Rebobulate?
I think you made that up. But I
No.
like it.
Me?
Rebobulate.
I've never.
Let's rebobulate.
Wouldn't make up a word like that. That
think-
would be wrong.
I think that's excellent.
Yeah.
We'll use it every day.
All right.
Here's something that I would love for you guys to do. If you haven't introduced yourself to Brian and Becky Jackson here in Birmingham yet, get to know them because they do windows and doors. EcoView Windows and Doors at 407-8161. This is a great time of the year to get in touch with them. If you want to let some of the light in, maybe you've got a patio area, you'd love to have a sliding door put in, maybe fiberglass doors or double hung windows. You definitely need to reach out to them. Here's the number, 407-8161. Lifetime warranty comes with your new windows and doors. A glass break warranty also comes with those windows and doors. Flexible financing options are available too. When dealing with a local company, this is the reason that you want to do that. And Becky is extremely knowledgeable. Just, give her some ideas of things that you want to do. Or if you're not sure, she can offer a lot of assistance in that area as well. So call them today when you're ready for new premium quality replacement windows and doors for your home. Think of EcoView Windows and Doors, 407-8161. You okay over there?
Well, we had an insect crisis over here.
What the heck is
which
going on?
First, I ended up with I had to get
Did you have one in your drink?
the stink bug. No,
No.
it was climbing up the mic stand over here, and I knocked it off, and then I thought it might have gone into my cup, and it was ugly.
Oh, it's
Anyway.
not as bad as me swallowing that beetle or whatever those
Yikes.
things were,
Ugh.
like the little ladybug beetle things.
Nice.
Yeah, that was fun.
Texted to us from the app, Michelle says, Iraq did not have weapons of mass destruction, as we were told. Afghanistan did not work out either. Are you, the U.S., tell me Iran now has nukes after we just destroyed their bunkers months ago? We're lying now, or were we lying then? Who benefits, Israel and U.S. warhawks? Okay. First off, yes, Iraq did have weapons of mass destruction. That is something that, for some reason, continues to reside in the shadows because when they found the weapons of mass destruction, which they did, it was immediately classified. And George W. Bush was asked about this because they finally declassified it many years later. After a point where it's like, well, now that's already found its way into canon. There were no weapons of mass destruction there. Everybody thinks that. But the reality is they found them, and then they classified it, which is like, why? That's the whole reason we went in, right? That's what
exactly
we were
right.
told
Right.
anyway. George W. Bush was asked about it. He said, I don't know. They classify everything nowadays. It's like an automatic knee-jerk reaction that you just classify things immediately. He says, I wish they hadn't done it. The world really should have known that at the time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, Joe Biden regularly blamed Beau Biden's brain cancer on the fact that he was around those chemical burn pits that were taking place in Iraq. What were those chemicals? Those were the chemical weapons they were burning, they were destroying on site. They didn't have the kind of efficient stuff that we had at the arms depot, the Anniston Arms Depot, that they were actually destroying chemical weapons there, but they had a very sophisticated method of doing it to keep it from ever getting out into the public. These were just big burn pits that they were using, and a lot of guys ended up getting what they call Iraq War Syndrome, or Iraq Soldier Syndrome, which was joint pains and, just a huge number of health issues that ran for the rest of their lives in many cases and are still going. Very sad. You're right. Afghanistan did not work out, and as I said, I think the day after Barack Obama announced that we had killed Osama bin Laden, we should have left. There was no reason not to.
Get out of there.
But I think Pete Hegseth just explained to you about, well, if we destroyed their nukes a couple of months ago, how come we're still going back in there? Because they weren't going to stop. They were going to continue to attempt to enrich uranium. They're going to attempt to continue to build weapons. Why wait until the last minute?
Well, and they already had the intel that they were stockpiling uranium. We knew that.
Yeah.
So they have that. The next step is the nuke weapon. I mean, it's that close. So again, as we kind of mentioned earlier, it's like, do you sit and wait? Do we as a nation, and I think of Israel too, do you sit there and go, well, they've got the uranium, but, you know, we're not sure about the nuclear weapon yet. Why are we even playing with this?
Right.
It's like having all the ingredients to make some type of
Yeah.
and you just sit there and wait till they actually have it put together, and you got to time it just right that you're going to blow them up so that they don't fire the nuke. Are you kidding me?
You're exactly right.
No, we're playing. You know what? We're not playing anymore. We're playing aggressive, is what we are. We're not playing defense anymore.
Yep.
We're playing offense, and that's what this is.
It is a very good thing, and it's the other thing about the whole no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq lie. We never should have waited as long as we did, for starters. But, you know, you could say, well, gee, Valerie, do you have any cake at your house? No, I don't have any cake in my house. Do you have flour? Yeah. You got
some
eggs?
eggs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got some milk? Yeah. You got some oil? Yeah. You got some baker's sugar? I got that. Okay. You have cake. It's just not put
you just
together
haven't put
yet.
it together yet,
Yeah.
and that's what they have.
You want to kind of get
Yeah.
rid of that before
and
you.
this isn't just making a cake. We're talking about, blowing up an entire city.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
We mentioned parts of Israel. What would the leaders of Iran do if they had that?
No question in my mind.
Instantly, they would take them out.
No question in my mind. Denson and Fuller of insurance agents, they shop around and got me the absolute best rates on all of my insurance, my home insurance, my car insurance. At one time, I had a motorcycle and other things that were being insured by them, and I no longer have those. But when I did, I was so glad that these guys were on my side. They were the right people for the job. They work for you, not for some big insurance company. I love that. 414-1476 or online at densonandfuller.com. Check them out.